welcome to Home Sweet Homeschool. If you're new here, my name is Ashley and I'm a homeschooling mom to one. And in today's video, we're gonna do a review of Gather Round Homeschool's Intro to Psychology. So just a little background information on Intro to Psychology. This is a year 3 unit, and that only means that it is written or was written in year 3. You can actually do it at any time. You do not have to go in order. If you're interested in this or your child's interested in this, you can select this on their website. Gather Round is a unit study approach. It's meant to be a core, so it's going to include all of your child's subjects except for math, which is wonderful. And you can teach your youngest children all the way up to high school level because there is a notebook for every grade level that you can think of. Not really grade level, but they have like early reader, early elementary, upper elementary, and you can find all that information on the Gather Round Homeschool website. And I also encourage you, if you're interested in Gather Round, to join the Gather Round Facebook community because you're going to find a ton of inspiration there as well. And as I'm filming this, I just realized I don't have my rings on, and that really bothers me, but it's going to be okay, right? Like, you don't care if I don't have on my jewelry. Okay, so let's talk about Intro to Psychology. So that was kind of just a little bit of background about it. One of the things that's really neat about this unit is in the teacher's guide, this was her first unit that she included the color coding. So I don't know if you can see, but it has an explanation as to what the color coding means. So the reason for the color coding is sometimes this information in the teacher's guide can be quite overwhelming for some children. And it's not just the younger kids. A lot of older kids don't have the attention span to sit through the reading that's in the teacher's guide. So they came up with a remedy for that. And so now they've color coded it, and it explains to you that the yellow is for like the level 1 attention spans. And she does give kind of a range, but you know your kids best. You know what they can handle. So you can look at what she suggests, and then you can kind of modify that for your child. And then what that looks like is right here on this page, this is yellow. So if you're reading the yellow stuff, you're going to go through the lesson and you're going to read anywhere that's yellow, okay? So that's kind of what the color coding is. I think it's an excellent addition to these units, and I think it's going to be very helpful for some families. Now, for my son, he's 13, and he has kind of built up his ability to sit through these lessons. When we started with Gather Round, he was going into the 4th grade. No, we didn't start then. We started 5th grade. 5th grade? We started 5th grade with North American birds, and they're newer, they were new then. And he had a hard time, and we kind of had to, cultivate that habit of being attentive and paying attention through the lesson. And he's finally built up to where he can sit through the whole lesson if we don't have like a break with a video and things like that. So I can see where this color coding is going to be super helpful. Now this does just start with psychology and goes with the units moving forward, the color coding. So that's just interesting to know if you're looking at Gather Round. So let's show you something else that is really nice about these year 3 units is they start with a devotion. So I was doing a devotion separately when we first started with this, but because the devotion is built into the year 3 units, I do not do a separate devotion. We use the devotion that's at the beginning of every lesson. It connects very well to the lesson, and that works for us. You can purchase separately a journal for your child because it does say something at the bottom like that you can go write in your journal. We did not purchase that. You could always use the spiral notebook. Don't think you have to go buy the extra add-ons. If you do want the journal, it's an option. But we didn't use the prayer journal. We just did the devotion. Excuse me. We just did the devotion and we talked about it together. So this is a nice add-on with these units here, the devotion. What else do I want to tell you about this unit before we get into it? I do want to share that if you are new to Gather Round or if you've been using it for a couple of units and you are not a part of the app yet, I really encourage you to download that app. It is free. You can also access it on a desktop, and I always have that link to the app down in my, or not to the app, to the desktop version of it. I always have it in the description box because guys, that is the place you want to be. Not only are you going to get like up-to-date information, you're going to have communities that you can join for each unit. You also are going to find that within each unit, you can chat with other families that are doing the unit or have done the unit. You're also going to have so many resources that Gather Round has added to it, or families that are using Gather Round has added to it, like videos and activities. And all you have to do is pull it up, and it's amazing. And while we were doing this unit, I just had the resources pulled up for psychology right there on the app. And if we needed to watch a video, I could click from that lesson right there and go straight to the video. Or if I needed an activity, it was all right there. I also encourage you, if you do use the app and you find something interesting that you have done, or a video that worked really great for your family, be sure to tag the moderator and let them know and share what you found, and they can add that to the resource list to help all the other families. So I definitely encourage you to use the app. It's amazing. All right. So there are a couple other things that you can purchase when you purchase this unit. You can also purchase, it's like an emotional, I don't even know what it's called. I don't have it. I don't even know where it is. I bought it like as a digital download. I think it's called like an emotional teller. I think we called them a cootie catcher. You know, you put them on your finger and you, I don't know. We did it when I was in upper elementary, middle school, and you wrote things on it. But anyway, that was probably a terrible description. They have that option on there. It was just a couple of dollars for the digital download. I printed it. We did not use it. And like I said, I have no idea where it is. So that shows you that you don't need it. Just being real and honest with you. The other thing you can purchase is the Seatwork Journal. Now, I love this. I rave about this a lot in my videos because we used it for dinosaurs. That was our first experience with it. And while that one was perfectly okay, the psychology one I absolutely loved. And I loved it because it kept us on track to remember to do copy work and spelling, which sometimes we can forget. Once we get wrapped up in the lesson, we forget about this. So this was the first thing that my son did every day. He would go grab it, do his copy work, do his spelling. And I also loved that it had grammar. So with the psychology Seatwork Journal, you're going to get daily grammar. So it's not in dinosaurs. I've not looked at Living Off the Land because we didn't finish that unit. But in psychology, there is grammar every day. So if you want grammar every day, you might want to look at the Seatwork Journal. The great thing about these is they are leveled for your child's notebook. So it's going to be their copy work, their spelling words for their level, their vocabulary for their level. It's amazing. And of course, the grammar would be for their level as well. So you may want to look into this. I did the digital download of it. You can get it in manuscript or cursive. And I went with manuscript because I'm not so much worried about focusing on handwriting as I want him to focus on copy work and spelling and vocabulary. Another great thing is you do have your character on there. And a lot of times I would just ignore that. And I was like, you know what? My goal for psychology was to do a character trait a week. So we do school 4 days a week because we go to a co-op on Monday. And so what I would just do is pick a character trait. Like for this week, we picked attentive. And so we would discuss, what does it mean to be attentive? We would talk about ways to show that we're being attentive. We would do an activity to go along with the character trait, something super simple. And then at the end of the week, I would just ask him like a personal question, like, what are you going to do to show that you're attentive? Or something like that. And so I would just change up that trait every week, like responsibility or honest, or you can pick anything. So you don't have to have this. If you're looking at this and you're thinking, my goodness, I'm already spending a fortune getting the unit and getting our notebooks, and you're telling me to buy more stuff, I'm absolutely not telling you to buy more stuff. You can totally do Intro to Psychology without the Seatwork Journal. If you have a system that already works for you to go along with the seat work, or you just completely ignore the seat work and you do something else, then keep doing that. But if you are looking for a way to do the seat work, I do recommend the Seatwork Journal. And this is a good time to kind of pause and revert to my video from last week. I just made a video about ways that you can approach the seat work because I know it's like a question all these parents have. And so I made a video about it. But I do love the Seatwork Journal, and I think it was well worth my money. Just putting that out there. You don't need it. Don't think you have to. I only have one child, so I could see where it would get very expensive if you had more than one child. So don't think you have to have it. It's there if you want it, okay? So that's the Seatwork Journal. I think that's all of that. Now, here's another question that I got asked when I did the flip through. So if you haven't seen the flip through of this and you want to see what psychology looks like on the inside, I'll link that below as well. I got a comment that said, or they may have like sent me a message and they said, I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. Do you think this unit would be appropriate for them? Let me just say this. I taught kindergarten for 13 years, so I had 5 and 6-year-olds. And I do think it's very important to talk about mental health, feelings, behaviors, all those kind of things with all age groups. In fact, we started our school day with some social emotional learning every day, like how to be a friend and just, certain behaviors and how to apologize and all those great things. If my oldest child was 6, 7, I probably wouldn't do this unit. Just not right now. I'm not saying scrap it, never do it at all. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if your oldest is like 6, 7, 8, I'd probably wait a little bit. There are other Gather Round units that are perfect for those ages. This one, I'd probably wait just a little bit and come back to it when they're older. Now, if your youngest is 7 and you've got older children, then yeah, go ahead and do this unit. And just like with anything, your kids are going to get out of it what they get out of it. They're going to sit there, they're going to listen, and they're going to take from it, what sticks with them. We have no control over that. So definitely, if maybe your youngest is that age, you could do it and then come back and revisit it later. So I'm not saying scrap it, never pick it up. No, it's a great unit. I would just wait if my oldest was like 6, 7, 8. Now, my child is 13. He would technically be at the end of his 7th grade year if he went to public school. And I feel like this was the perfect age, middle school, high school, to do this unit. Because first off, he has very big emotions. He is just at that age where you're just a little bit more emotional than normal. He also has ADHD. And so with that comes big emotions. And this was perfect for him. It really opened his eyes to understanding why he might behave the way he does, or why we have fears and what is anxiety and how do we solve problems. It was great for that. It was very eye-opening for him. And we talked about a lot of things we've never talked about before. So I thought it was great for his age group. So I think that's what I wanted to touch on right there in that first part. All right. Let's talk about, so the overall theme of Intro to Psychology is that what matters is what God says about you. That's all that matters. Not what the world says about you, but what God says about you. And I thought that was a wonderful message. Every lesson ended with just such positive, the message was just so clear. And I would even read it sometimes twice so that he could hear it, because he's very hard on himself. And he does worry about what other people think, about him. And so I would just try to reiterate, all that matters is what God says about you. And that you're made in God's image, and he made you exactly the way, you are. And we went over all of that. And so that's kind of the overall message the whole time. It's great. Now, it is a little heavy in the beginning. So when you start this, you might be like, oh my goodness, I don't think we're going to make it through. Now, I love psychology. It was my favorite class in college. And I love this, and so I eat all this up. But the first couple of lessons, like incoming messages was the first lesson. It talked about the different, your different systems. It also covered the control center. And so that's where you learned about the parts of the brain. And I mean, my gosh, look at this. We were like overwhelmed learning about all these parts. I tried to take it as slow as I could. Now, we didn't have the brain hat that I saw a lot of people. It must have been in the lower level notebooks. So I bought a styrofoam head at Michael's. I mean, who knew they even sold like different styrofoam heads? There was like a female head, a male head, and then like I don't know what kind of head it was. It was the most expensive. We went with the female head because it was the cheapest. And we used toothpicks that I'd put paper labels on, and we labeled the parts like as we talked about them. And it was a great reference to kind of go back as we were doing the unit. If they mentioned any of those parts, we could go back and find it on our styrofoam head. So the first couple of lessons to me were pretty in-depth and pretty scientific. You're talking about the different departments of your brain and what they do. But it was interesting. Like lesson 4 is just what is psychology. But once it got into the chapters, we discussed some great things, and I made a list, but we discussed things like fears, anxiety, perspective, responses, learning, language, what else do I have? Problem solving, emotions, behavior, memory, dreams, sleep. We discussed all these things, and it was great. Like knowing why and how our brain functions and why we respond the way we do, or why do some people remember their dreams and some people don't. Like, it was awesome. How to work on your fears, how to problem solve, how to change your perspective. It covered so many great things. Like, I feel like this is a great unit if you really want to talk to your kids about feelings and all those kind of things. This is wonderful. So we covered tons of things. That was just some of the things I remembered when I was writing stuff down. So my son's favorite part of this unit was the writing project. And so in this unit, it focused on creative writing. So it would kind of give you like, hey, write a poem or write a short story, something like that. But they got to choose the topic, and that is my son's absolute favorite. He loves to write as long as you're not dictating to him what he's writing. So he enjoyed all the writing that was in here. And then what you did at the end is you went back and picked one of those pieces that you wrote, and then you started editing and revising and publishing it. And so he really enjoyed that. He picked his short story. He wrote a pirate story, and he picked that, and we went through. And even though I'm not gonna act like it's sunshine and rainbows over here, because it's not. I know we spent a good 30 minutes fussing about why do we have to edit and why do we have to revise and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it just kept going and kept going. But we trucked right on through, and I tried to give him, the best explanation I possibly could. And we finally got it edited and revised, and he did his final copy. So sometimes, we just have to take a deep breath and proceed. So while that was his favorite part of this, he loves to write, but he did not enjoy that process. So I don't want you to think it's all great over here all the time, because it's not. I mean, he still doesn't like to be like told exactly what to do. I mean, who does? All right, so that was his favorite part. He also enjoyed, though, brain lobe bingo. And I know that sounds really weird. And when I mentioned to him that day that we were going to play, he's like, what in the world is that? But it came in the back of our student notebook. It had the pieces you could cut out in the game board. And he actually really enjoyed it. And it was just a good way to review the lesson. So he liked that. Now, one thing I want to say, we are in the middle school level. And there is some research in here. There's definitely some research in here that they have to do. I wouldn't say it's like over the top, but he is still learning. Like because his go-to is, I'm just going to ask Siri, and or I'm just going to type it in Google, and just he takes whatever the first thing says, And so we have to do a lot of talk about reliable resources and where are you? What site are you actually on? Like, do you think that's reliable? And so because he's still learning, I'm still kind of guiding him as far as research. And so there was one lesson, it talked about miscommunicating, which is something that happens all the time. And so it was a huge article about George Washington and some miscommunication. And it was teaching you how, if you're reading an article, you can do a keyword search and it can take you to where it mentions that. And so I taught him how to do that, like within the article. But the article was huge. And I know from being his mom, he would have gotten so overwhelmed if he had to find those answers in that huge article. So one thing I did with the psychology unit, and I'm going to keep doing this moving forward, is I went ahead and printed the information that he needed. So this website had a ton of information. So I just went and did some work ahead of time and copied and pasted, because, some websites you can print the article like straight from there. And this one you couldn't, I guess, because it was super huge. And so I just copied and pasted it into PowerPoint, and I made him a page that he could come do his own research, but it wasn't going to be so overwhelming. And I highlighted, like if their keyword was Ohio Valley, I would highlight it so he would know, hey, this is the paragraph that I need to read. And guys, even with this, he still needed some guidance. And that's okay. You don't expect your kids to just know how to do wonderful research, because they don't. And so we do have to help them. And so I would go in here with him and I'd say, okay, what's the question? We would read it and then we would underline, what we could use as an answer. And that helped tremendously. I feel like this is really teaching him how to go and search out those answers that he needs for his research. And I did that for that entire page. And so that's what I did. Anytime we got to a page that was research based, there was one about roller skates. And so I went and found some information about roller skating and how roller skates have changed. And I'm like, the importance of reading the whole article, because he's a skimmer. He's a skimmer and he just wants to look for the word and hope that's the right answer. So reading the whole article and then going back and looking at what they're asking. So that worked out really well to have it right here in front of him. And I would just, nothing fancy, put the lesson number on the top and I kept it in a separate folder. And when he needed it, I'd have it out with his stuff for that day. And I did that for each of his lessons. So this was all about germs. And then he had one that talked about MRIs and CTs and things like that. And so I just had this available. It also kept him from going to websites that might not be appropriate. I mean, he hasn't, but when you get to a website, there's all these pop-up things and other places you can visit and you don't know if it's trustworthy or anything. So this helped with the research. So I'm going to keep doing this moving forward. That helped us a lot. So I think that's it. Overall, this was very manageable. He enjoyed it and we used the entire notebook. So sometimes we use the student notebook and sometimes we don't. But for this one, we did. And it worked out perfectly. So overall, we really enjoyed psychology. I know if you watch any of my videos, we pretty much always enjoy the unit. We enjoyed psychology. I forgot to mention, we started reading the Green Ember. I probably should have went with Bridge to Terabithia, but I went with the Green Ember. He was kind of into it to begin with as I read aloud. I loved it. As an adult, I loved it. I thought it was a great story. I finished it myself. He got really bored with it. I thought he was going to like it because the villains are wolves and he loves wolves. And so he was kind of into it, but then he really just was not interested anymore. And I'm not one of these people that are going to make you sit through a book if you don't like it. I mean, that's not any fun. And so I just finished it myself. So going back, I might have chose Bridge to Terabithia or something completely different. We did watch The Social Dilemma. Of course, that's for older kids. We watched that, and that was really good. And we've already seen Finding Nemo and Finding Dory, but those would be great to watch with this. And then we also watched Inside Out again. That's one of our favorite movies. We watched that. That's a great one to talk about emotions. So those are just some things that you could watch, if you were interested. But like I said, overall, we loved Intro to Psychology. We thought it was an excellent unit. And we're looking forward to our next unit. So let me know in the comments, have you done this unit yet? Is it on your list to do? If you have any questions about Intro to Psychology, Gather Round Homeschool, whatever, leave them in the comments below. You can also check out the flip through of this. I also have a playlist of Gather Round Homeschool videos because that's been our curriculum for 3 years now. So have a lot of videos about it. So that's it. And as always, thank you so much for watching.